Greetings and salutations, Vault Dwellers. In this series of videos, Noodle and I are going to break down each of the new Magic the Gathering Fallout decks and give you an idea of which cards are more effective than others and how to play each of the decks more effectively. Some of you have either purchased or are looking to purchase the decks, and we want to give you the best shot at playing the decks successfully. In this video, we'll be going over the Scrappy Survivors deck. Let's jump in.
Our first commander in the deck is Dogmeat Ever Loyal. He is adorable and he's a legendary creature. When Dogmeat enters the battlefield, mill 5 cards, then return an aura or an equipment card from your graveyard to your hand. Whenever a creature you control that's enchanted or equipped attacks, create a junk token. Junk tokens are going to be important in this game, and I think Dogmeat, being a very affordable card, is going to be an amazing, effective commander.
I agree. Our primary mechanic is equipment and aura, and our secondary mechanic is junk tokens, and he has abilities that play to both of them, which make him, I think, the better choice of commander.
Plus, he's a dog!
Next up, we have Preston Garvey Minuteman. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a green aura enchantment token named Settlement attached to up to 1 target land you control. It has enchant land, and enchanted land has tap at 1 mana of any color. Whenever Preston Garvey Minuteman attacks, untap each enchanted permanent you control. This card is a lot more subtle in its power. It favors the primary mechanic, equipment and aura, but what's subtle about it is there are other cards that boost creatures based on the number of enchantments that you have, and you are able to enchant any of your lands at the beginning of combat, whether you attack or not. Also, when he attacks, you untap each enchanted permanent. That's any permanent that has an enchantment on it. So you can literally tap to attack, and when he attacks, untap any of your attackers that have enchantments on them. He's tricky.
He is very interesting. I am a little bit concerned about how expensive he is.
He's definitely a late game card.
You can't bring him in until later in the game, and if he dies, it's going to cost a lot more to bring him back. However, if you can play him later in the game, he can be a game changer. Dogmeat's cuter. We have tokens in this game. This one is junk. Tap, sacrifice this artifact, exile the top card of your library. You may play this card this turn, activate only as a sorcery. Junk, I think, is going to be a phenomenal game mechanic, especially with Dogmeat digging through the trash and cycling through all your cards. I think it's important to see junk tokens in action, but they are amazing.
Junk tokens are the secondary mechanic for this deck, and you're going to have a lot of them out on the battlefield. Being able to look at the top card of your deck and play it this turn if you got a bad draw, or exile it if it's something that you either don't want or can't play, is a nice way to compensate for a bad draw, or just get more things out on the battlefield. The next new token for the game is Wasteland Survival Guide. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each quest counter among permanents that you control. By itself, it doesn't look like much, but you'll see that later on in this deck, quest counters matter, and whoever is equipped with this particular token gets +1/+1 for each of those quest counters. If played properly, you can pump a creature up really fast.
I play green decks quite a bit, and this deck is partially green. I am a huge fan of pumping up creatures, getting lots of tokens out there, turning them into an army, and just sending them on their path of destruction. I think this token will help a lot.
The next series of cards that we're going to go through all come from the primary mechanic of the deck, which is equipment and aura. Each of these is going to be scored by Noodle and myself based on how we think they will perform for the deck, and some of them are quite interesting.
First up, we have Idolized. This is an enchantment aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has, whenever this creature attacks alone, it gets +X/+X until the end of turn, where X is the number of non-land permanents you control. I have played this card. I've seen it in action, and I think it's absolutely brutal. I love this card. It can make your creature very powerful. Because this is such a badass card, I am giving it 3 thumbs up.
It's an interesting card. It requires that your creature attacks alone, and while it does get all pumpy until end of turn, based on the number of non-land permanents you control, which can include the aforementioned junk tokens that you'll be able to produce a lot of, it is a good way to get a creature to be quite powerful, But I think that creature is also vulnerable to removal, vulnerable to all sorts of things. And as your only attacker, I'm not sure. I still think that the card can play well, but I only gave it 2 thumbs up. This card, however, is stupidly powerful. Well rested. Also an aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has whenever this creature becomes untapped, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, then you gain 2 life and draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. It's only 2 mana, so you can get it out there on turn 2, and within a couple of turns, you can take a creature that might not be that big and make it unbelievably powerful. I give that card 3 thumbs up.
After Dogmeat, this is my favorite card in the deck. Having played this one as well, in the last game, I equipped a 2/2 creature with it, and it won me the game. It's extremely powerful, 3 thumbs from me. Swiftfoot Boots, an artifact, equipment. Equipped creature has hexproof and haste. This one looks interesting to me because of the hexproof and haste thing. Those are obviously attributes that are great for your creatures. It's also a very affordable card, just 2 mana of any color that makes it easy to bring it online very quickly. But I don't think it's a game changer. So while it's cool, 2 thumbs from me.
I also gave it 2 thumbs because it does cost 2 mana to get out on the board, and it costs 1 to equip it. So if you want to get something that can benefit from the haste, you also have to have that creature out there. If you want that creature to be useful, it should probably be larger than a 1/1. So you're looking at probably turn 5, turn 6 for this, and that reduces its overall quality. I also gave it 2 thumbs up. Abundant Growth. Enchant land. When Abundant Growth enters the battlefield, draw a card. Enchanted land has tap, add 1 mana of any color. By itself, the card's not all that interesting. However, it does cost 1 mana, it does enchant a land, and for things that get pumpy based on the number of non-land permanents that you have, or enchantments, or other things, it can boost the power of your other creatures. However, I only gave it 1 thumbs up.
I gave it 2 thumbs. I've been stuck in a game being mana starved, and a 3-color deck sometimes can be tricky to get the right color mana that you need. So for me, this card is very important. Having something like this can make the difference between being able to play the game and not being able to play the game. Super Mutant Scavenger. Creature, mutant warrior. Has trample. When Super Mutant Scavenger enters the battlefield or dies, return up to 1 target aura or equipment card from your graveyard to your hand. I'm going to give this one 2 thumbs up as well. It seems like a very cool card. It's a powerful creature, 5/5, and has trample. I'm a big fan. Again, a green deck reference. But I don't think it's as impressive as well rested. So 2 thumbs from me.
By itself, as a 5/5 creature for 5 mana, it's a fine card. It's got trample, and it's a fine card. The fact that it also lets you pull auras or equipment from your graveyard to your hand is interesting, but it's not so interesting as to make it super awesome. 2 thumbs up. Acquired Mutation. It's an aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature has +2/+2 and is goaded. It attacks each combat if able and attacks a player other than you if able. Whenever enchanted creature attacks, defending player gets 2 rad counters. This is probably more interesting in a 4-player or 3-player game of Commander. As a 2-player, the goaded ability doesn't really play out. It does, however, give rad counters, and that can be important for the game. I gave it 2 thumbs up.
I also wasn't super thrilled about the goaded thing. It's cool, it's not a game changer, but the rads, I got very excited about that. Just to irradiate the hell out of your opponent, I give it 3 thumbs. Bloodforged Battle Axe. That just looks badass. Artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create a token that's a copy of Bloodforged Battle Axe. I give this a 3. 3 thumbs from me. It's big, it's bad, and it multiplies.
For me, it's an okay card. I gave it 2 thumbs up, primarily because you're going to pay 3 mana to get it onto something. That's a drawback in my opinion. However, the fact that it does copy itself every time equipped creature deals combat damage to a player makes it a little better than a 1-thumb card. 2 thumbs up. Sticky Fingers. It's an aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has menace, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. When enchanted creature dies, draw a card. Not every card in a deck can be awesome. This one isn't that big of a deal, though it is cheap. 1 red mana, enchant a creature, menace is helpful, and when it dies, being able to draw a card, also getting a token out on the battlefield, but it just didn't speak to me. I gave it 1 thumb up.
Cheap, 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 cheap. It gets my vote for that. It's cheap and it gets stuff done. I know that this deck is about auras. I know that this deck is about tokens. It brings tokens to the playing field. Definitely not a 3 thumbs up, but it will get the 2 thumbs from me. Animal Friend. It looks terrifying. Enchantment Aura. Enchant creature. Enchanted creature has, whenever this creature attacks, create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. Put a +1/+1 counter on that token for each aura and equipment attached to this creature other than Animal Friend. 3 thumbs up for me, 100%. This thing is going to get out of control fast, and it's going to create a classic green deck mass attack.
I also gave this 3 thumbs up. It's another sneaky card. You don't realize how quickly this is going to pump something up. Other cards in this deck can pull auras and equipment out of the graveyard, can take them off of the battlefield, can equip them for cheap and virtually nothing. So if you can get this out there, and if it can stay there, it could very easily turn one of your creatures into an absolute monster. Gunner Conscript. Trample. Gunner Conscript gets +1/+1 for each aura and equipment attached to it, similar to Animal Friend. When Gunner Conscript dies, if it was enchanted, create a junk token. When it dies, if it was equipped, create a junk token. The number of things that have to happen to make this card actually come online for everything that it's able to do require more variables than you're probably going to get in a game. By itself, it's a 2/2 for 2 with trample. That's fine. Get some equipment on it, it will get pumpy, and when it dies, it turns into some junk. I'll give it 2 thumbs up.
I agree completely. For all the same reasons, I will give it 2 thumbs up. It's cool, but it's too specific. The chances of this actually working are not that high. Grim Reaper's Sprint. Enchantment Aura. Morbid. This spell costs 3 less to cast if a creature died this turn. Enchant creature. When Grim Reaper's Sprint enters the battlefield, untap each creature you control. If it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and has haste. While it seems badass, I think it's a little bit on the expensive side, and the morbid mechanic may not even come into play. So yes, it's extremely cool, but it doesn't get the 3 thumbs from me. 2 thumbs.
Hell no, this thing is amazing. The creatures that die don't have to be your own creatures. If you do have a deck and you killed a bunch of blockers, then that can count. If any creature died, this thing becomes a 2 mana card. You can play a new creature out there, you can enchant it with this, and you get another combat phase and all of your attackers untap. It's ridiculous. Squirrel Nest. Oh man. Enchant land. Enchanted land has tap to create a 1/1 green squirrel creature token. I don't really like this card. 2 green mana plus a third. It's going to actually take a land out. So if you have a ton of land, then maybe you can go ahead and use one to create a 1/1 squirrel token. But in general, I don't think that this card or what it produces is worth invalidating one of your lands to play it.
I disagree completely. I give this 3 thumbs up. Come on, squirrel tokens all over the place. It's madness to go with the other Animal Friend card, having just squirrels all over the place. 3 thumbs for the squirrels. Wild Growth. Enchantment Aura. Enchant land. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional green mana. I'm going to give it just a 1 thumb up. It's a useful card, but it's not all that impressive. Again, in a 3-color deck, having an additional specific color mana isn't that big of a deal. If it was any color, it would get 2 thumbs from me, but it's just green, 1 thumb.
I also gave it 1 thumb. It's a better use of enchanting a land than the Squirrel Nest.
Hey.
Getting an extra mana, so you tap 1 land, you get 2 mana. That's helpful. It's cheap, but unless you're mana starved, there's probably better things you can spend your mana on. Fertile Ground, enchant land. Whenever enchanted land is tapped for mana, its controller adds an additional 1 mana of any color. This is almost the same card that we just had a moment ago. It's slightly more expensive without adding any additional value. So I give it 1 thumb as well.
Shun the non-believer. This card is much more better than the other card we looked at. This gives you mana of any color, which can totally be a game changer. I'm going to give it 3 thumbs. Brass Knuckles. Artifact equipment. When you cast this spell, copy it. Equipped creature has double strike, as long as 2 or more equipments are attached to it. I'm going to give it 2 thumbs up. Very interesting. Love the copy aspect of it. A little bit expensive. 4 mana. 2 thumbs.
2 thumbs for me too. If I were to use this in a deck, copying, that's interesting, but it still is expensive. 4 mana to get 2 copies of it. You still have to pay to equip it to something, though you could equip both of them to the same creature and get double strike on it. But it's just kind of a middle of the road card. I can't see it being part of a main strategy. Pre-war formal wear. When pre-war formal wear enters the battlefield, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield and attach pre-war formal wear to it. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has vigilance. Standard equipment cost for this is 3, but for 3 mana, you can play this, pull a creature back out of your graveyard, put pre-war formal wear on it. So essentially, you're getting a creature and an equipment for 3 mana, and that creature has +2/+2. I gave this 3 thumbs up.
While it's interesting, I think it's another one of those cards that's just too specific. What if you don't have anything interesting in the graveyard yet? Like, how late in the game can you use this card? I wasn't really impressed with it. I gave it 1 thumb. Champion's Helm. Equipped creature gets +2/+2. As long as equipped creature is legendary, it has hexproof. This is interesting. I like this artifact equipment. The +2/+2 is cool. The chances of your creature being legendary are actually pretty high as well. This deck is full of legendary creatures, but not a game changer. 2 thumbs.
If I were to play this, it's going to cost me 4 mana. Equipped creature does get +2/+2 and has hexproof, so you could play this on your commander, for example, and that'll help. It'll keep your commander from getting removed, but probably there are better things to spend 4 mana on. I gave it only 1 thumb. Silver-shroud costume. It's an artifact with flash. When silver-shroud costume enters the battlefield, attach it to target creature you control. That creature gains shroud until end of turn, and equipped creature cannot be blocked. This is another one of those pieces of equipment that while it does normally cost 3 mana to equip, it only costs 2 mana to play it and equip it at the same time the first time you bring it out to the battlefield. And since it has flash, you can actually play it like an instant. So if somebody is targeting your commander, for example, you could bust out with this and your commander gains shroud until end of turn, and then next turn can't be blocked.
Oh, interesting.
For me, I gave it 2 thumbs up.
The flash aspect of it does make it more interesting than it initially looked to me, but I'm going to keep my 1 thumb vote. It's interesting, but I think the deck will depend more on the junk cycling mechanic than on something like this. 1 thumb. Cass. Vigilance. Whenever Cass or another creature you control dies, if it was enchanted or equipped, return any number of aura cards that were attached to it from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to the target creature. Then attach any number of equipment that were attached to it to that creature. That was a mouthful. Cass is a legendary creature. I am a huge fan of playing creatures. My gameplay relies heavily on putting out creatures and then pumping them up and then attacking. However, this ranger doesn't have a lot of extra abilities that I was interested in for this deck, and it's a later in the game card. I'm going to give it 2 thumbs. Though I do like it, like on the higher, almost 3 thumbs. 2.5 thumbs.
Cass is one of those creatures whose abilities are conditional, but when they fire are ridiculous. So whenever Cass or another creature that you control dies, if it was enchanted or equipped, then when it dies, its auras went into the graveyard and its equipment was left on the battlefield. So you can return any number of aura cards that were attached to it from your graveyard to the battlefield, attached to another creature, and then take any equipment that was attached to it and attach it to another creature.
Oh.
So since you have auras and equipment, it basically keeps those things on the battlefield and attached to another creature for any creature that you have that has an enchantment or is equipped. And for me, that makes it absolutely 3 thumbs up. All That Glitters is an aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. Consider Cass from a moment ago, who keeps those things on the battlefield attached to other creatures. Now, obviously, you need other creatures to keep things attached, but then you have something like this, where for 2 mana, an enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for all of that other stuff that's out on the battlefield. It's a good card, but it still requires a bunch of other conditional things to make it fire. So for me, 2 thumbs up.
I gave it 3 thumbs up. It's not equipment only, it's any artifact. Imagine if you had a whole bunch of junk tokens out there. right? All of a sudden, this is a really strong card. 3 thumbs for me. Pip-boy 3000. Artifact equipment. Whenever equipped creature attacks, choose 1. Sort inventory, draw a card, then discard a card. Pick a perk, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. Check map. Untap up to 2 target lands. I'm giving it 3 thumbs up. I think this card takes care of all the possible game mechanics that you can choose for this deck, and it has you covered. And it only costs 1 mana. I think this is a super card.
It only costs 1 mana, but you still have to pay 2 mana to equip it to something. Though it is nice that as long as that creature stays alive and is attacking, you get to do some other stuff like untap 2 target lands, giving you more mana to use in a later phase. It's not a useless card, but I still only give it 2 thumbs up. Almost Perfect. Enchanted creature has base power and toughness 9 and 10 and has indestructible. This is an expensive card. You could use it to pump up a smaller creature or to pump up any other creature that already has a bunch of +1/+1 counters on it and turn that thing into an absolute juggernaut of death. But because it's late game and largely conditional, only 2 thumbs up for me.
Definitely late game, absolutely expensive, but 9-10? Come on, this thing can create a literal monster. And late in the game, that can actually turn the whole game around. I'm going to give it 3 thumbs up. Rancor. Enchanted creature gets +2/+0 and has trample. When Rancor is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return Rancor to its owner's hand. This thing basically can't die. You can't get rid of it. It just keeps coming back like a boomerang, and it keeps doing its thing, which is amazing. I'm going to give it 3 thumbs.
I'm only giving it 1. I've played Rancor in green decks before, and it can make a difference, but not every card in the deck can be awesome. Now this card, on the other hand, Masterwork of Ingenuity. You may have Masterwork of Ingenuity enter the battlefield as a copy of any equipment on the battlefield. If you've got something out there, now you have 2 of them. And this thing only costs 1 mana. I think it's going to be crazy powerful. 3 thumbs up.
I agree. I think it's more powerful than the creators realized. I hope they don't realize their mistake and change it. It's practically free and extremely powerful. For an equipment or a deck, this is amazing. 3 thumbs, 100%. Codsworth. Commanders you control have Word 2. Tap, add 2 white mana, spend this mana only to cast aura and or equipment spells. Tap, attach target aura or equipment you control to target creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery. I think if the deck is already very rich with artifacts and auras, considering our previous card, the Masterwork of Ingenuity, imagine if we made a copy of something that was expensive to equip. With this, we can equip it for much less. I think it can be a very useful card. 3 thumbs from me.
I would also have given it 3 thumbs up, except for his first ability to tap and add 2 white mana, but you can only spend it to cast aura and or equipment spells. That limiting factor knocked some points off. It's great that commanders you control have Ward 2. That'll keep them alive from removal for a little bit longer, and his tapping ability to attach target aura or equipment is also really good. It's just that 2 white mana, that limitation, that took it down to 2 stars for me. Strong back. Enchant creature. Equip abilities you activate that target enchanted creature cost 3 less to activate. Aura spells that target enchanted creature cost 3 less to cast. And enchanted creature gets +2/+2 for each aura and equipment attached to it. This is definitely a 3 thumbs up for me. Making equipment costs less and aura costs less, and then giving +2/+2 for everything that's attached to it for 3 mana can take pretty much any creature and make him monstrous.
I agree completely. I think much like an actual Fallout, Strongback is so underestimated. I think this card can make a huge difference for some of the bigger characters out there already. 3 thumbs up from me. Fire Shrieker. Equipped creature has double strike. I'm going to give it 2 thumbs. While I love double strike, it's a little tricky. It's not just 3 mana to equip. It's 3 mana to play the card and then 2 mana to equip this. So it's actually quite expensive. But double strike is cool, so still 2 thumbs.
It is expensive, and depending on the creatures that you have on the battlefield, you might not have something where double strike really makes a difference. But if you have something that allows you to equip it for free, then it could be quite cheap. Since it has that sort of offset balance from one to the other, it's not an awesome card, it's not a 1 thumb up card, so I put it in the middle at 2 thumbs up. Armory Paladin. Trample. Whenever you cast an aura or equipment spell, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card until the end of your next turn. This behaves very much like a junk token, except that instead of playing it until the end of this turn, you can actually play it until the end of your next turn. Outside of that, it's just a 3/3 for 3, 2 thumbs up.
That's a very good point about the junk token. It is very similar. However, it's a 3/3 creature with trample. I love trample. But it doesn't get all 3 thumbs for me. I'll give it 2 as well. Behemoth Sledge. Artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has trample and lifelink. I'm going to give this one 2 thumbs as well because it pumps up my creatures and gives them trample and lifelink. What's not to like? But it does cost 3 on top of the 3 that we paid to cast it to equip. So I don't know how often I'll get to use this. 2 thumbs.
I gave it 1. It's +2/+2, trample and lifelink. Lifelink is good. There aren't very many cards in this deck that do give lifelink, so that might matter. But effectively, you're getting +2/+2 for 6 mana. I'll pass. Ian the Reckless. Ian is a companion from Fallout 1, and those of you who played Fallout 1 recognize him and probably find this card to be quite funny. Whenever Ian the Reckless attacks, if it's modified, you may have it deal damage equal to its power to you and any target. At first glance, you look at this and you're like, why would I ever do that? But if you had Ian as a companion in Fallout 1, that's exactly what happened. I was going to give him 1 thumb up until I realized that if you can put a lifelink aura on him, then suddenly the damage that he's doing to you actually gives you life. So for that, I'll give him 2 thumbs up.
Oh, I see. I just couldn't get past the fact that he does damage to me. I'm like, why would I want to play this card? I gave him a 1 thumb up. Pure Still Paladin. Whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. Metalcraft. Equipment you control have equip 0 as long as you control 3 or more artifacts. I gave this 2 thumbs. I can see myself using this in the deck, especially if I have a lot of equipment cards out already, if I've been using my junk tokens. This is an early in the game card being so cheap, but early in the game, I don't think it will be that useful. I'm going to give it 2 thumbs.
Hell no. This thing is amazing. Simply because as long as you control 3 or more artifacts, junk tokens, which you get from
Dogmeat,
all sorts of things, as long as you control 3 or more artifacts, all of your equipment costs 0 to equip. So all the things that we've been complaining about that are like, oh, 3 to cast and 3 to equip, suddenly are 3 to cast and 0 to equip. That can quickly change the game. 3 for me. Basilisk Collar. Equipped creature has Death Touch and Lifelink. Equip 2. I like the Death Touch and Lifelink part. I don't like that it's 3 total to actually get it onto something. Those two kind of balance each other out, so 2 thumbs up.
I gave it 3 thumbs up. It has a dog on the picture. The dog was a big part of it. No, but Death Touch and Lifelink in the same combo is badass. You just automatically kill anything that you touch and you get life for it. 1 to cast, 2 to equip. I don't think that's a big deal. 3 thumbs from me. Explorer's Scope. Whenever equipped creature attacks, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it into the battlefield tap. I'm going to give it 1 thumbs up. It's really not that big of a deal. We have better milling cards, we have better search your deck cards, and better activate land cards. It's just okay.
I concur. It's just okay. I mean, it's cheap to equip. Maybe early on in the game, if you don't have anything else to spend your mana on, it's okay, but I can't see myself using this. Junk Jet. When Junk Jet enters the battlefield, create a junk token. Pay 3 mana, sacrifice another artifact, double equipped creature's power until end of turn. It's another one of those kind of middle-of-the-road cards. Get another junk token, that can help somewhere along the way. The junk token itself is useful, but pay 3 mana and sacrifice another artifact, which could be the junk token that you literally just put on the battlefield, to double equipped creature's power until end of turn, and equip 1. If you wanted to get this thing out there and actually use it on the same turn, you're looking at 6 mana, which is great if you're doubling a creature that's like 10/10. But if it's something that's 2/2 or 1/1, it may not be worth it. Only 2 thumbs up for me.
Only 2 thumbs up from me as well. For what this card advertises, it does not deliver nearly as much. I expect it to be more oomphy and not as expensive. 2 thumbs. Three Dog Galaxy News DJ. Three Dog is a legendary creature, human bard. Whenever you attack, you may pay 2 mana and sacrifice an aura attached to Three Dog. When you sacrifice an aura this way, for each other attacking creature you control, create a token that's a copy of that aura attached to that creature. I really want to like Three Dog. He's such a cool character. But I'm not sure I can see myself using this card in my deck. I think it's quite cool, but I think it's a little too scenario specific. I'm going to give it 2 thumbs.
Three Dog is a 1/5 for 3 mana. So he's got some defending power early on in the game, and then you can just slap auras onto him all day long. It took me a while to understand why this card can be so amazing, but basically, whenever you attack, you pay 2 mana and sacrifice an aura, and then you get a copy of that aura on every other attacking creature.
But you have to have the auras out there for this to work.
That's true. You wouldn't get to it on turn 3, but you get him out there on turn 3, and he's likely to stay around, and then you smack some auras on him, and suddenly you can get auras on everything. I like strategies where you can use proliferate, for example, where you can take a thing and suddenly mirror it into a lot of other places, because creatures on the battlefield can become very powerful very quickly and overwhelm your opponents. I think what you're going to see is people are going to try and remove this card because of his potential to be so powerful. And if that's the case, then you're probably just wasting mana. If everybody just sees this come out and then they remove it, then maybe you stop playing it. But until then, he gets 3 thumbs up from me. Mantle of the Ancients. Enchant a creature you control. When Mantle of the Ancients enters the battlefield, return any number of target aura and/or equipment cards that could be attached to enchanted creature from your graveyard to the battlefield attached to enchanted creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each aura and equipment attached to it. Imagine you've been milling cards, you've got a bunch of auras and equipment in your graveyard, you've got Three Dog out there on the battlefield with nothing attached to him, and suddenly turn 5, you can get this out there, and you can bring back all of those auras and attachments and stick them onto Three Dog, and then you can attack and sacrifice and pay a couple extra mana and take all of those auras and clone them across everything else. I think Mantle of the Ancients is going to be an absolutely wicked card. It gets 3 thumbs up.
Interesting. I only gave it a 1 thumbs up because I saw how expensive it is and how much it relies on things already being in the graveyard. What if I don't have anything in the graveyard at all, was my concern. Then this card is useless to me. Brotherhood Outcast. When Brotherhood Outcast enters the battlefield, choose 1. Return target aura or equipment card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a shield counter on target creature. I gave this a 1 as well, just because it seemed way too specific to me. I may not be able to use the abilities of this card at all, in which case it's just a regular 3/2 white soldier.
I think that I'll always be able to use the second ability at least. I might not have aura or equipment with mana value 3 or less in my graveyard, but I'll be happy to put a shield counter on my commander.
Oh, okay.
He's not awesome enough to make 3 thumbs up, but he's good enough to make 2. Inventory Management. It's an instant with split second, which means it pauses the stack until it resolves. And for each aura and equipment you control, you may attach it to a creature you control. Noodle and I have been going back and forth about this card, but it comes down to the definition of control. Control can't be something that's in your deck, but control can be something that's on the battlefield or something that's in your hand. So suddenly you can just get all of this stuff out and attached. You can get all of the equipment that's on the battlefield attached to a creature for the low, low price of 2 mana. I think that it could win a game in a single turn.
So I've heard. A lot of people are very excited about this card, and I still just don't see it. It's cool, but I can't see it turning the game around. I'm going to give it 1 thumb until I see it in action. Mr. Gutsy. Whenever you cast an aura or equipment spell, put a 1/1 counter on Mr. Gutsy. When Mr. Gutsy dies, create X chunk tokens, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on it. I gave this 3 thumbs up. It may be very basic, but I think this will be a highly underestimated card. It will just sit there as a little 1/1 creature that everyone will overlook. And before you know it, it's a behemoth. 3 thumbs.
You're not able to put +1/+1 counters on him unless you cast aura or equipment spells. And a lot of the things that we've seen lately are about bringing them back from the graveyard. It's too situational for my taste. I need to be able to cast lots of aura and equipment spells and spend my mana on those instead of on creatures. In order to put +1/+1 counters on him, And ultimately, he just ends up creating a bunch of junk tokens. And if I don't have a card that uses junk tokens to pump things up, then long term, I'm not sure that the benefits of this card are worthwhile. 2 thumbs up for me. Now we're going to move on to the second mechanic of the deck, which is tokens, mostly junk tokens, but occasionally some others as well. For example, with Megaton's Fate here. Choose one. Disarm, destroy target artifact, create 4 treasure tokens, or Detonate. Megaton's Fate deals 8 damage to each creature, and each player gets 4 rad counters. Destroying an artifact to create 4 treasure tokens, which allow you to tap for mana, is interesting, but probably not worth 6 mana. Dealing 8 damage to each creature and giving 4 rad counters to each player is absolutely worth 6 mana.
Yeah.
Particularly if you don't have any creatures on the battlefield, or if you're able to combine this with something else into a combo, like we'll show you at the end of the video. Once again, balancing the positive and the negative, 2 thumbs up.
Destroy target artifact can be any artifact on the battlefield. So if I can destroy your artifact and create treasure tokens, that can be a really big deal. So for me, that got my vote. But I still don't think this is a 3-thumb card, mainly because of its cost. So I'm going to give it 2 thumbs. Breakdown. Instant. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Create a junk token. 2 thumbs for me. I'm a huge fan of instants. I love busting out with them, especially on somebody else's turn. If I can remove an artifact or enchantment, that's great. And it gives me extra junk. 2 thumbs up.
3 mana for removal of an artifact or enchantment isn't worth it for me. 1 thumb up. Crimson Caravaneer. Double strike and trample. Whenever Crimson Caravaneer deals combat damage to a player, create a junk token. A 1/2 creature for 3 mana isn't very good, even though it does have double strike and trample. With double strike, that really makes it a 2/2 creature for 3 with trample. Dealing combat damage to a player and making junk tokens, also not that big of a deal. 2 thumbs up.
Junk tokens as far as the eye can see. Pew, 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 pew. Junk, 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 junk. Come on. 3 thumbs from me. Moira Brown. Legendary creature, human citizen. When Moira Brown enters the battlefield, create a colorless equipment artifact token named Wasteland Survival Guide. With equipped creature, gets +1/+1 for each quest counter among permanents you control, and equip 1. Whenever you attack, put a quest counter on the target non-land permanent you control. I gave this a 1 thumb, even though it looks like she has many tricks up her sleeve. It's busy and unreliable. What if I put counters on things that will get destroyed? I don't trust this card. 1 thumb.
I think Moira is amazing. While she herself can produce quest counters all over the place, she's not the only thing in the deck that can. So it's quite possible, if you can get both of the quest counter producing cards out, that you could get the creature equipped with the Wasteland Survival Guide quite large, quite quickly. For me, I gave her 3. And here we have Duchess, Wayward Tavernkeep. Hunters for hire. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put a quest counter on it. Pay 1 mana and remove a quest counter from a permanent you control to create a junk token. This card started out being kind of crazy good. It's the other card that can produce quest counters, which means if you have Wasteland Survival Guide out on top of something, then you can get that thing to be quite large. But that was tempered by the fact that you can remove quest counters to turn them into junk tokens. Maybe if Moira wasn't out there, then the quest counters are less valuable than a junk token, but I still only gave it 2 thumbs up.
This gameplay is right up my alley. I love everything about this card, but there are cards that are a lot more powerful in this deck that just outshine it. So I only gave it 2 thumbs because of things like strong back and well rested that are just outrageous. But Duchess is amazing, and her ability to produce junk tokens is an extra bonus. 2 very large thumbs from me. Commander Sofia daguerre. Flash. Crash landing. When Commander Sofia daguerre enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target legendary permanent. That permanent's controller creates a junk token. I gave this 1 thumb up. It's interesting. The flash aspect is interesting. But for a 1/3 creature with just 1 magical superpower, paying 4 mana is a little steep. 1 thumb.
I agree that she's expensive, but she does have flash, so you can play her as an instant. And I like that she can just take out somebody's commander and turn it into a junk token. I still think it's worth 3 thumbs up. Veronica, Dissident Scribe. Veronica has Menace. Whenever Veronica Dissonant Scribe attacks, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. Whenever you discard one or more non-land cards for the first time each turn, create a junk token. 3/3 for 3 is good. Menace is great. Cycling by discarding and drawing a card, also helpful. Making a junk token off of it? Maybe. I think this is just a middle-of-the-road card. Gets 2 thumbs up.
You underestimate Veronica. Veronica and I go way back, like hours. In the last game, I was able to equip her with Well Rested, and it was just insane. She was so powerful. She was there every turn. She won me the game. She was amazing. She gets three thumbs from me.
Every deck has a handful of cards that don't fit into its primary or secondary mechanics, or in some cases might even overlap between the two of them. And these are just the miscellaneous cards. We pulled out the ones that were most interesting, starting with Heroic Intervention.
Which is an instant. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. That gets 3 thumbs from me. It's self-explanatory, it's powerful, it's a slap in the face. I love it.
You may not think that this card is awesome at first glance, but when we show you how it combos in a minute, it can save your butt. The problem is that you have to have it and the other card in your hand and the mana to play them. Outside of that, it's not that cool of a card. So balancing it out, 2 thumbs up. Path to Exile. This is a famous old card, but I like the new art in it. Exile target creature. Its controller may search their library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. What can you say? 1 mana for removal. Early on in the game, you can knock out somebody's commander, you can knock out... This is just a fantastic card to have in the deck. If you can end up with it in your hand, it can be the cause of a ton of frustration. 3 thumbs up.
Ah, yes. This is an oldie but a goodie. Always make sure to keep that 1 white mana available to play this card. It's a nightmare for your opponent. You can remove any target creature, exile target creature for just 1 mana. Yeah, 3 thumbs up all the way. Bighorner Rancher. Vigilance. Tap. Add any amount of green mana equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. Sacrifice Bighorner Rancher. You gain life equal to the greatest toughness among other creatures you control. He's a 2/5 creature for 5 mana. I think he's a not very strong dude who costs a lot of mana to cast. I'm going to give him 1 thumb.
He is very expensive. A 2/5 creature for 5 isn't worth it. The fact that he has Vigilance is almost irrelevant because you're probably not going to attack with him so that you have him around to use his other abilities. Probably his only redeeming quality is that you could attack with him, and if something was going to destroy him, you could still sacrifice him and gain life before he exits the battlefield, but that's practically a suicide move. 1 thumb up. Blasphemous Act. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. Blasphemous Act deals 13 damage to each creature. It's very, very expensive, but remember, it's each creature on the battlefield, period. If you are playing up against a deck that suddenly drops 13 2/2 zombies out there, this level of removal for what would effectively be a single mana is awesome. It is still situational, so it only gets 2 thumbs up.
This card is Armageddon. You don't play it until your very last move. And yes, you take out absolutely everything on the board with it, but everyone goes out with a bang. I give it 3 thumbs. Agility Bobblehead. Tap, add 1 mana of any color. Pay 3 and tap. Up to X target creatures you control each gain haste until end of turn and can't be blocked this turn except by creatures with haste, where X is the number of bobbleheads you control as you activate this ability. I'm going to give it 3 thumbs. It seems situational, but we know that there are other bobbleheads in there. If you can get the other bobbleheads out there, this card can be very powerful. Plus, it's a mana tap, so that's cool. 3 thumbs.
People are going bonkers over the bobbleheads, but mostly about including them in other commander decks. In this particular deck, you're going to pay 3 mana to get him out, 3 mana and tap to give, at most, 2 creatures haste and unblockable until end of turn, if you were able to get both of the bobbleheads in this deck out onto the battlefield. I think it's way too situational. He gets 1 thumb up. Cait, Cage Brawler. As long as it's your turn, Cait, Cage Brawler has Indestructible. Whenever Cait attacks, you and defending player each draw a card, then discard a card. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on Cait if you discarded the card with the highest mana value among those cards or tied for highest. I'm going to go so far as to say that this card is practically bullshit.
Oh!
It's 1/1 for 2, but this weird ability that when he attacks, you and defending player each draw a card, then discard a card, and then if you discarded the card with the highest mana value, put 2 +1/+1 counters on him. It makes it so situational, I almost don't want it in the deck. One thumb up.
One thumb up from me as well. I really wanted this card to be cooler than it is, and it's just not. It's very specific, very messy. I'm not impressed by this card. One thumb. Valorous Stance. Instant. Choose one. Target creature gains indestructible until end of turn, or destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater. This is a great removal card for not that much mana. It's kind of basic though, so it just gets 2 thumbs from me. But very, very useful card.
Removing a large creature for 2 mana is fantastic. Target creature gaining indestructible until end of turn. Not so valuable in my opinion, but late in the game when your opponent has something really big that you're really worried about, being able to just knock it out for 2 mana is great. 2 thumbs up. And here we have our other bobblehead, Perception. Tap to add 1 mana of any color, or for 3 mana and tap, look at the top X cards of your library where X is the number of bobbleheads you control. You may cast a spell with mana value 3 or less from among them without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. I'm not sold on the bobbleheads. At most, you'll be able to look at 2 cards. You might be able to cast one with mana value 3 or less if you are able to draw one. Otherwise, you're going to put everything else on the bottom of your deck, and you might genuinely need whatever was just there. It gets 1 thumb up for me.
Oh, you just don't get the bobbleheads. They are cool. I am constantly mana starved. No matter how well or how many times I shuffle my deck, it's a curse. For me, anything that can help me out with mana gets at least 2 thumbs up. 2 thumbs for this guy. Chaos Warp, another instant. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top card of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. This is a very classic red removal instant. It gets 2 thumbs for me.
I like this card, but like other cards that I've reviewed here in this deck, if it has something that I think is really cool and something that I think is really not cool, then it just ends up with 2 thumbs up, which is what this one ends up with. Yes, it's great that you can remove something from anyone, including yourself, but if you're using this to remove something from your opponents, you don't know that what they come up with isn't going to be worse than what you just took away.
Oh.
That sort of conditional luck thing isn't a big part of my gameplay, but I'll still give this 2 thumbs up. Single combat. Each player chooses a creature or planeswalker they control, then sacrifices the rest. Players can't cast creature or planeswalker spells until the end of your next turn. This clears the board for 5 mana. If you're playing in a commander game with 3 other opponents, it clears the board. Everybody gets to keep 1 thing and sacrifice everything else. I give this 3 thumbs up.
I gave this 2 thumbs up. Mainly because I never want to see it in action. This is a horrible card. 2 thumbs for me. It's interesting, it's different, but it's not extraordinary. 2 thumbs.
In the next section, we have 2 Saga cards. Sagas are different enough that they warrant us reviewing them independently, and we'll start with Vault 101 Birthday Party.
As the Saga enters and after your draw step, add a lore counter. Sacrifice after step 3. In step 1, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token and a food token. In steps 2 and 3, you may put an aura or equipment card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield. If an equipment is put onto the battlefield this way, you may attach it to the creature you control. I gave this 2 thumbs up. Sagas are very specific. Quite interesting, quite interesting. I like the equipment in step 2 and 3 as a mechanic, but I don't see myself planning my whole game strategy around this card. It's curious, it's interesting, it's not bad. It can be very useful for tokens and artifacts, but I don't see 3 thumbs on this, 2 thumbs.
Since this deck's primary mechanic is equipment and aura, anything that allows you to attach equipment for free or to put equipment from your graveyard onto the battlefield for free is valuable in my opinion. While this may not be something that you get out there, the fact that it costs 4 mana and over the course of the next 3 turns you get benefits from it, in my opinion, makes it worth 3 thumbs up. The other saga is Vault 21 House Gambit. Steps 1 and 2, discard a card, then draw a card. And step 3, reveal up to 5 non-land cards from your hand. For each of those cards that has the same mana value as another card revealed this way, create a treasure token. It's only got 2 thumbs up from me. Step 3, in my opinion, isn't useful at all. Step 1 and 2, basic cycling mechanic, that's okay. So we've got a plus and a minus. They balance each other out. 2 thumbs up.
Oh, I don't like revealing anything from my hand unless I absolutely have to. And this card makes it so that I have to. 1 thumb from me.
Before we end this video, we want to show you how some of these cards can work together. And while some of these things might be situational, if you can get these cards out there, you can transform the battlefield in just a couple of moves. We'll start with Megaton's Fate and Heroic Intervention. If you choose the second option of Megaton's Fate to detonate, Megaton's Fate will deal 8 damage to each creature, and each player gets 4 rad counters. Initially, you're thinking that this is going to destroy your creatures too, but as an instant, you can play Heroic Intervention, where permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. And now, you've just cleared the board, but left all of your creatures behind.
For my combo, I want to show you Well Rested attached to a creature card. This is a combo that I actually experienced in-game, and it won me the game. It was very effective. I attached Well Rested to Veronica. Veronica is a 3/3 creature, which I was able to get out on the battlefield very quickly, and she has Menace. So being able to attach this enchantment aura of Well Rested to her turned her into a monster. Turn after turn, the ability activated. It's interesting that the ability activates when the creature becomes untapped. So it's not when she attacks. It's at the beginning of my turn when she becomes untapped, when my opponent's guard is down and he thinks that the worst is over. I get to put 2+1/+1 counters on her, gain 2 life, and draw a card. This grew very quickly, and I killed my opponent before he knew it.
All That Glitters is an interesting card where enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. You can see how this could work with Duchess, Wayward, Tavernkeep, where if you have Duchess out there and you're able to deal combat damage to a player, you can add quest counters to her card. For 1 mana, you can remove one of those quest counters and create a junk token. Each junk token that you create gives you +1/+1 on whatever creature is enchanted with All That Glitters. It can be a move where later on in the game, when you have a bunch of mana, you can spend it, create a bunch of junk tokens, pump up your creature, and then roll in for damage. You can do the same thing with 3-Dog Galaxy News DJ, where whenever you attack, you pay 2 mana, sacrifice an aura attached to 3-Dog, and then replicate that aura across every other attacking creature. That in itself can pump up whatever creature All That Glitters is attached to very, very quickly.
If you're looking for pure muscle and power, Almost Perfect and Junk Jet actually work in a very terrifying and wonderful way together. Almost Perfect is a card that Oscapt wasn't so impressed with, but I liked it because it's a late in the game 9/10 character that you can create. And Junk Jet was a card that I wasn't particularly impressed with, but putting them together, Junk Jet can actually double the power of my 9/10 character. That's insane. With just these 2 cards together and a creature, we can create a ginormous monster. And if this monstrosity can be equipped with anything that will also give it trample or lifelink, this can just end the game. I think this is a very powerful combo.
There you have it, kids. This is our card-by-card review of what we feel are the most important cards in the Scrappy Survivors Fallout Magic the Gathering deck. We hope this helps you Fallout players understand when and where and why you might want to play certain cards and how they can work together so that you can get the best enjoyment out of your Magic the Gathering experience. Be sure to check out our other videos where we review each of the other Fallout decks in this new set.
And let us know in the comments which cards and card combos you like so far. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, get out there and play some games. We are Gamer Aviator.
And until next time, stay safe out there, Vault Dwellers.